Laura. Happy to have you this morning. And in the hot seat, we do have, all the way from our wonderful, beautiful museum. I'm sorry to say one of the finest museums in the Midwest. It's our commercial. We have Jeremy Elliott. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Becky.
So happy to have you with us. And good morning, everyone. And it is a finally Friday. Laura, let's thank our sponsors this morning.
Absolutely. We have Walmart, Meadowview, Salem Crossing, Hoosier Uplands, Kentuckiana Cat and Core, and Dr. Black's Eye Associates, Dr. Mindy Gunn.
Yay. Thank you to our great sponsors, and we're very proud of them. Let me kind of give you a little bit of, let's talk about, we are into school and already doing the COVID shuffle.
Yes.
Not funny, but regarding local sports, Salem and West Washington reaching their 20% threshold. Both schools have turned into virtual classes for 2 weeks. We talked with the health department yesterday, and I do want to remind everybody, these are things that this is something that is supposed to happen. It has to happen, and that is just if it was the flu bug, if it was an outbreak of something else, when you have 20% of your population or your school closed or not able to come, we do know it's COVID or other things that are related to right now. But anyway, so you do have to do something different, and virtual has been the procedures, which is wonderful that we do have that at least.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
And West Washington board made the decision on Monday. Salem's administration announced the decision on Wednesday, and it was actually an emergency. The board did not meet. It was actually an emergency decision made by our administration, and which can do that. And so we are actually having our meeting next Monday, but we have not met yet. Both schools have actually altered their extracurricular activities until then. The Salem Lions would have played Silver Creek tonight. Scottsburg game on September the 3rd is still on the schedule, though. We'll see what happens there. It is likely the Lions will face Brownstown on their first game back. Brownstown. Watch everybody. Brownstown. And you know, they, instead of a pacifier, when you're born, they give you a football.
Absolutely.
Yes,
They do.
The Senators were to play a non-conference game with Clarksville tonight, and that game was canceled. Their first conference game was set for next week with Mitchell on September the 3rd, and that is off the schedule. Their next game is set for September the 10th with Springs Valley. And Laura would just ask about this. The Reds escaped without a complete shutdown by the Brewers yesterday. They taking it 5-1 win. Yay! Here, let's say, and this one belongs to the Reds. Cincinnati travels to Florida. That's the game we need to go. We all need to go. Let's do a road trip right now. Let's go travel and let's go support the Reds in Florida, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Although we're getting Florida weather right here, right?
Yeah.
For 3 games with the Marlins beginning at 7:10. NASCAR moves back to Daytona this weekend, and tune in for Saturday for the Coke Zero 400. We'll also carry the Nebraska-Illinois college football game, 12:30 on Saturday. Sunday we'll carry the Jaguars and the Cowboys. Who would you be for? Who would you root for, Laura?
Probably the Jaguars.
Oh, what about you?
Oh, yeah. Whoever's playing against the Cowboys
Oh,
is
that's hilarious. That is
who I'm rooting for.
So funny. I love
I
that.
was thinking the same thing.
You guys are hilarious. That's funny.
You do have some cowboy colors on though today.
It's Air Force. That's not. That's Air Force blue. That's not
Yeah.
Cowboy blue.
Do not confuse it.
It's not Kentucky blue either.
Oh, I love that. You know, that's funny because someone had a shirt on and they said it's Kentucky blue. I said, no. It's Colts blue.
There you go. There you go. I can live with that.
Yeah, we love the Colts. Yeah. So, which we are going to be, you know, when we were discussing before we went on the air, everything that when you make plans for something, it's subject to change right now because our numbers are up. They're, you know, and
Yes.
we should be getting some Colts tickets coming in.
It's
We just
complicated.
got some Purdue tickets coming in. We just got those yesterday. We should get some IU tickets. So we can send some of our lucky listeners to these games if they are played or, you know, I mean, we'll see, right?
Yeah. Everything is subject to change.
TBD.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. All right. Today is the, where are we at? Today, we're on to the 27th day of August. Wow.
Wowzers.
Crazy. Today is the Duchess Who Wasn't Day. Is there any thing that comes up in history, Jeremy, where you could think there was a Duchess who wasn't? Any tea you can spill
I
over
don't
there?
believe that that's directly involved with Washington County or Indiana history, so I'm
I bet we have a
drawing
Duchess
a blank
somewhere.
on that.
I wonder who wasn't they.
we have,
Um,
we've had barons and stuff that lived here, but I'm not aware of a duchess.
We should have been duchesses.
we should, and the ones that
I
wasn't.
think you're born into that primarily, or
well,
married
maybe we
into it,
were.
or
yeah, maybe somewhere.
possibly.
Somewhere down there. Forgive your foe day. And those now that's history, right? Where you've got to forgive, right? It's easy. It might be easy to forgive, but it's hard to forget,
Absolutely.
right? Is that something like that? Just because day. Just because. Of those just because. Kiss me day. All
Let's
right.
not do all that with the COVID going around.
Right. Probably
Those
shouldn't
kisses
celebrate that
yourself.
much.
That's what got us in this mess. Some of that
Absolutely.
kiss face. No more second face right now. Okay?
No,
kissing.
keep your distance.
National Banana Lovers Day. Jeremy, you love bananas?
Bananas are good, yes.
It's
I like
Hesitant.
bananas. It's not my favorite fruit, but
Yeah.
I like bananas. Sure.
Yeah. What about you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like to make
Well, we
banana
had
bread with them.
You like what?
To make banana bread with them.
Oh, now you're talking. Now, banana split day was just the other day. So, that's always good to do with it. Banana.
Did you know, Becky, that the first time bananas were had in Salem, they were brought up here from people who had taken flatboats to New Orleans
You
in the
have a
really
history story
in
about
the really
bananas?
early 1800s.
How do you think, like in history, like how do you think that someone around the world, like how do you look at it like something like a banana and think, I'm going to eat that? I mean, how do you, no, I mean, right? No, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, like
Yes, ma'am.
especially when you come upon a banana.
Right.
I mean, how would you know where to go? I mean, how
Well,
do you
I
know
think
to take that
I
pin
think
off or
traditionally that's been indigenous people that have been brave enough to
trial and error?
try that. Yes, ma'am.
I would, those would be the fun friends that we try. Those are the people you want to hang out with.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
mean, the ones, the thrill seekers that are going to try, right? I mean, let's go back over that. Would that not be
It would
somebody
be more
you hang out with?
exciting.
I would be the one hanging out saying, you go on and try it if
Yeah.
you want, but
Well, I would
I'm
be
not going to die if that's poisonous. So
I know. How would
take
you?
it
I mean, right?
first.
How would you know such a? You know what I mean?
Well, again, that in another historical context, tomatoes for the longest time were thought to be poisonous, and no one would eat them.
A tomato.
A tomato.
Oh, wow. Well, and then there's some people that think like, and we love persimmons, and we love persimmon pudding and all of that, but there's people that do not eat persimmons because they think they're. I think there's some on this planet still that maybe off this planet too.
That could be.
The persimmons.
That's another conversation.
That's off the air conversation.
Okay.
All right, or maybe our nighttime if we have a nighttime show. We'll talk about that. But back to the banana. I mean, to that. Okay, so when we had such a rarity, let's say that the bananas, because bananas do not grow here,
Right.
and let's say that when they are shipped in here or that they have arrived, who would have been able to afford? Would they have been expensive? How would they have been
Oh yeah.
presented?
Yes, the bananas that would have come to Salem originally in the 18 teens and 20s. Yeah, absolutely, they'd have been expensive because there was no other way to get them outside of taking a flatboat to New Orleans. So only the people that were involved in that commerce, that taking goods from Washington County to New Orleans, they were the only ones bringing back bananas. So I bet they were making quite a profit off of it.
I mean, and how awesome would if you were that first person that introduced everyone to this?
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that would be pretty cool.
Unfortunately, we've lost that name to history, but we're aware that that's how it occurred.
So how many days did it take a flatboat to get from New Orleans back to Washington County?
You couldn't. Once you took your flatboat down to New Orleans, they either sold it for scrap lumber and walked back,
How would bananas have stayed decent?
or they took a steamer and they would come back up. They would come back up the Mississippi and the Ohio on a steamer. And most likely that's where the bananas came in, was from the steamer. Because on a steamer, I mean, you could get back from New Orleans in about 3 days.
Okay. Well, they would have been okay then.
Well, I guess so. Especially if they picked them green.
Particularly if they were green.
Yeah,
Right.
pick them green, and then by the time they got there, actually,
They'd be ripe.
Yeah, good shape, ready to go.
And
I
once
would
you
think-
brought bunches of those to the square, they'd immediately garnered attention.
Oh, I bet. I mean, how awesome! And then to find out that they're good, like they have potassium.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So
I wonder what year bananas were discovered.
Wow. That's
That'd
a
be
good question.
there'd be a little
That's,
Google for you, Laura, this afternoon. Not
South
now.
American history.
Oh well, maybe now. Get it? But it's
I bet it's back in the hundreds.
But you think about that, okay? And like all the different things that we have that are not like really usually grown around here. What about like the strawberry? Because I guess strawberries, were they actually grown around here? Or, I mean, I know people have strawberry patches now, but was that something?
650 AD.
Was the
I
first
figured it was the
banana?
hundreds.
Wow. And
Wow.
I still would love to have been. I'd love to have been somewhere in that conversation. If
So-
let's try to,
People had been eating bananas for about 1,200 years before they came to Salem, Indiana.
Salem, Indiana. That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, I guess then we knew for sure that they were safe.
Trial and error.
Trial and error. And then, I mean, it's interesting though, like because if you're tropical, let's say like even a pineapple. Do we know anything about pineapples? Because again, that would have had to have been somebody.
Likely, I don't know the history of that, Becky, but I would presume that it may have also have come from the flatboating era, because Washington County, Salem, used to actually flatboat hogs to New Orleans that would then be loaded on a steamer and taken to Cuba for sale.
Oh wow.
Okay, this says
Yes. So
How
we
did
would
they
have had
Go ahead. Sorry.
we would have had some commerce with the Caribbean islands and that area. So yeah, it's possible that pineapples came up around the same time.
It's crazy to think like because we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have all the access we have now. For them to make those deals and to say, hey, we've got something that possibly would you be interested in, and then the journey that it took to get to where your place
Yes,
is,
ma'am.
right? I mean that'd be a lot of work.
here is some good info.
Okay.
Pineapples first came to Europe in the 16th century, brought by none other than the intrepid traveler and explorer Christopher Columbus.
Oh, there you go.
He discovered pineapples in Guadalupe in 1493 and brought them back.
There you go.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. That's cool. Put another feather in his cap, right?
Absolutely.
Jeremy went quiet, but it's
I'm
true.
going to stay off of that subject.
Do what?
I'll stay off of that
You'll stay off
subject.
that subject. But we're going to rewrite history or talk about history different.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I hate to.
But, but if you go back and you look at the pineapple, how in the world did you know that, like, to take that off? I mean,
Right.
that to me is
Doesn't look like something
it's
you need.
mind-boggling. Yeah, to look at that and
Yes,
think, oh,
ma'am.
gee, let's take that off and let's see what's on the inside. And then, of course, gold. I love pineapple, so I mean that's yeah. And of course, pineapple has a crown, so I love that. It's a queen.
Right.
Queen of fruit.
Love queens. All right. So it's banana. Now we're
We're
Way
still
off track.
talking about gold squirrel.
Yeah, love
National Petroleum Day. And
I'm sure that's significant.
okay, Pots de Cream Day. Pots de Cream Day. It's some kind of a dessert. Anybody familiar with it? Pots de Cream Day. This is also Tarzan Day. I'm a huge
There you go.
Tarzan fan. We always, my dad. I've got the old poster of Johnny White.
Weissmuller,
Yeah, exactly. And he was my
Olympic
favorite.
swimmer.
He absolutely.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
was he not wonderful?
He was.
He was my favorite Tarzan. How about you? Was that?
Yes, ma'am. Probably. He's the most familiar one that I remember from my
But
childhood.
he was like the ultimate.
Yes,
when you
ma'am.
had pictured Tarzan, that would be him.
I think the first Tarzan, the one that he replaced, I believe, was from Indiana.
Oh, is that right?
I can't think of his name.
But remember how they would speed him up It was swimming.
Yes.
But as a little girl, I never realized they speed them up. And I thought, how in the world could you swim that fast?
Right.
And then remember, whenever the alligator, he would take the alligator and he'd wrestle the alligator, and they'd go down and they'd go round and round and round, and then you'd wait for a moment, and you'd see a bubble, and then all of a sudden he'd come.
Right.
Woo! He
Really.
made it, and that was intense. Of course, you would know that he'd have to. As an adult, you know that he's got to do because
Sure.
he's got another series.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's going to be
His
on next
contract's
week.
not up yet. But as a little girl, you're wondering, will he make it?
Right.
Would this be the one that gets him? Did you love it too, Laura?
I don't know. I was never really into Tarzan that much.
Oh, okay. I know. I'm sorry, but we were one of those Tarzan fans. Yeah.
Me too.
They've had other great Tarzans, and they've had some new Tarzan shows.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of the ones that are more recent now.
Okay.
I really like them. The Disney did one that's really good, and they did a really good job. Of course, there's a cartoon version and there's a
Right.
version.
Yeah.
And I really like both. So, all right. So Tarzan Day. Just a little bit of reflecting on that. Hang on. I lost my days. Okay. Sorry, I was over here swinging through swinging on the vines. World Rock Paper Scissors Day. Okay, so if you're playing rock paper scissors, go, Laura. What are you gonna be?
Probably a paper.
What are you gonna be?
Rock.
Rock.
Oh, I would win.
Generally.
Oh! All right, there we go. All right. So the girl, get out and enjoy. There you go, for sure. All right, we're going to give at the end, Laura, don't let me forget, we'll give our results of our surrounding area, which are
They're a disaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
But until then, we're going to find out. We've got Jeremy, and Jeremy is actually over our museum and our historical society. And of course, before we leave, we got to get a story in. That's a must.
Uh-oh.
Our Friday stories, right? Love that. I could have Jeremy in all the time telling stories. I love stories. But let's talk about, we got some things coming up. First, the big mural. Let's talk about the big mural
Sure.
that's entered in our community.
Yes, ma'am. So I was approached, I don't know, sometime last year. I guess it has been a while now. With the COVID, I'm so fuzzy on dates anymore. Everything seems like it's been centuries ago. But at any rate, IU Rural Engagement, selected Salem as one of the outreach towns for their benevolent programs that they offer. And one of the professors from the School of Architecture, Daniel Martinez is his name, reached out to the Historical Society and wanted to know if we had some recommendations for some historically significant people from our county who had lacked recognition in the past. So I immediately suggested that, some of the women traditionally, sorry, Becky,
It's all right.
have
Laura and I
have been
outnumbered,
ignored.
We know that. Okay.
So IU was keen on that idea, and I made some recommendations to their committee that they formed. There was several, I think it's like a 10-person committee. City of Salem's involved in that, Parks and Recreation, the Chamber of Commerce, Tourism, the YMCA, several entities involved, the Historical Society. They had, several meetings about installing this pocket park in our town, and they went through a series of sites to select which area they were going to put the park in. And obviously the salon there is at Adrian Brook. The Adrian Brook Salon was the winner of that poll. And so that is where IU hired or contracted a professional artist whose name I believe was Rafael Blanco, who was originally from Spain. He's a professor at a college in Illinois, I think. But he came and did the unbelievably remarkable rendition of some really significant women from our county history.
I love that.
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
And how
We're
fast
thrilled
he
to
did,
have
and
it.
how, I mean, he made it.
He literally did a woman a day.
That's
Literally.
crazy. I mean,
Yes,
I mean, it
ma'am.
was very quick.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And I went up and visited with him, and Becky, he was doing those renditions from literally 2-inch by 4-inch pictures of those women. And he threw that tiny image up onto that wall in such a grand. It's remarkable. He is incredibly talented. I tried to convince the mayor that we should kidnap him so we could have him paint the rest of the
I
town.
love that.
Yes, ma'am.
I was at City Hall. I think it was Wednesday, or I can't remember what day. I'm with you. Days are running together, and just I was sitting there, and I was sat down, and I just was looking at that. It's absolutely.
It's stunning.
It is. It really is. And
Most every
that.
one of those women, when you look at them, if you pull up their images online, for those that have images online, that's exactly what they look like.
Yeah.
Yes, it's incredible.
So let's talk about the women.
Yes, ma'am. Left to right.
Yeah.
So if you're standing at the back door of City Hall, left to right on the salon wall is Mary Reed Lusk, who was a pioneer who came here in 1819 from South Carolina with her family. Her brother was a famous doctor in the Civil War and actually was sort of in charge of the hospital at Jeffersonville. That was like the third largest Civil War hospital in the Union. While he was going to college at U of L to get his medical degree, the parents, his sister Mary, the one that's on the wall, she was actually older than Sam, but the parents could only afford to send one of their children to school, and so Samuel was the one that won out there. However, the entire time that Samuel was going to school at U of L for the medical school, he was sharing everything that he had with his sister Mary.
This is so awesome.
So he basically was teaching his sister everything that he learned and giving her copies of workbooks and textbooks and everything that she needed to know. She eventually became known as a granny. And in the pioneer era, a granny was like a homespun doctor, kind of like someone that you would call on, if you had an illness that you couldn't figure out and you couldn't afford a doctor or couldn't get to a doctor. So eventually, as I said, she became known as Granny Reed Lusk. Granny Lusk went up in front of the Indiana State Medical Examiners Board and passed to be a medical doctor without ever going to college.
Wow.
Also, Becky, she was the mother of 11 children.
Oh my goodness.
11.
Oh wow. Oh.
This woman used to get on her horse and ride to Jackson County, Lawrence County, Harrison County to help people that were in medical trouble.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh wow.
So she was a remarkable human being. It's widely speculated and recorded in our local histories that Granny Reed Lusk was also a member of the Underground Railroad. And if that is true, you can imagine that she would have been one of the most significant people involved because she had a medical knowledge that most of the other people that were involved were farmers largely. They would not have been able to help someone with a broken leg or a broken ankle or a pregnancy or any of those kind of things that they might have encountered. So yes, she undoubtedly would have been one of the most significant people involved with our county's Underground Railroad operation during that time frame.
I am so amazed. I mean, you think about that. I mean, talk about a strong woman and strong women. That story is beautiful. I mean,
yes, ma'am.
And you think about the degree of difficulty, raising 11 children herself,
yes,
and
ma'am.
then you got to remember how long
yes,
being
ma'am.
pregnant, right?
Right.
And then still going on and,
yes.
and furthering herself. and
You know good
furthering
and well
her
she was
education.
riding her horse to places while she was pregnant,
Well, you would have
helping
yeah,
helping other people. Yes, ma'am.
I love that.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow, how I mean, you talk about a trailblazer.
You know the underground operation in our county had two separate lines. There was an eastern line and a western line, and the western line was known as the Reed line. And you know, it's been said that um, Granny and her brother, who was Reverend Isaiah Reed Jr., that they were the primary conductors of the western line of our Underground Railroad. So if those recordings are accurate, then undoubtedly, you know, you couldn't have had a more significant person than Granny
That's a
Lusk.
beautiful story.
Yes, ma'am. And Granny Lusk used to live where Lake John Hay is. They actually flooded her old homestead to make Lake John Hay.
Oh wow,
Yes, ma'am.
wow, that's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So number 2 is Lula Des Rutter. Have you heard of Des Rutter?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Rebecca Marshall can tell you who she is.
Yes. Yeah.
So Lula Rutter didn't actually go by Lula much. She mostly went by Des. Most everybody knew her as Des Rutter. But Des went to Purdue in the early 1900s and was the very first licensed female pharmacist in the state of Indiana. And she worked at the Rutter Drugstore, which is now the Salem Apothecary. So I think there's a little bit of a memorial about Lula Rutter in the back of the apothecary. If you go in there, you can learn a lot more about her than even I know about her inside there.
I love this.
Yes,
this
ma'am.
Is so awesome.
Yes,
you
ma'am.
talk about women. I mean, like empowering women. I mean, you talk about. I mean, and the obstacles and the hurdles and everything that they had
Right.
to go through to do all that they've done.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Well, you know, we hope that there's inspiration that can be drawn here
Absolutely.
for the girls that are growing up in our county now. There's definitely been some remarkable women that they could look up to that are homegrown.
I love that.
Yes, ma'am. Third woman on the mural, I believe, is Brady Shrum. Most everybody knows who Brady Shrum is. Our local elementary school is named for Brady Shrum. She was born here in Salem to some pretty prominent brick masons, and she became an elementary school teacher. She started in 1898 at the Ryman School, which was on 135, and she ended up teaching. Well, I think she graduated from Indiana State. I believe she got her teaching degree from Indiana State University. Back then, I think it was called Indiana Normal. But she taught for somewhere around 48 years in Salem at the elementary, and the first Girl Scout troop in Washington County was named after her, the Brady Shrum troop. So that was probably in the 20s or 30s,
Oh wow.
I would guess.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So then Brady passed away in 1964, and that's the same year that they built the school, and so it was named in her honor, and she was aware of that before she passed away. So she was flattered by that, and she's been significant to countless children. As you know, a lot of our teachers in our community have been. I always mention when I talk about Brady, I always mention Grover Smith because he as impressively, you know, had an incredible teaching resume and influence over the children that grew up here.
Absolutely. This is fantastic, and I'm so glad, that she's there, and of course, and I'm glad that you told the story for anybody that did not realize that our elementary school Brady Shrum was named after.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. So the fourth woman on the mural, Becky, on September 17th, will get recognized again because it is Sarah Park Morrison, who was born over by the hospital in 1833, and she went on to become the first female student at IU the first female graduate at IU, and the first female professor at IU. So the trifecta of first for
Wow.
women at Indiana University. Um, on September the 17th, we're going to set a marker. I think the ceremony is going to be largely virtual, but we're going to unveil a state historical marker that also, just like the Pocket Park, was sponsored by Indiana University. So it was at no cost to the county or any of us here. Um, but we're going to unveil that marker on September the 17th at 4 p.m. for Sarah Park Morrison over behind the high school. That's going to tell a little bit more about her accolades.
Absolutely fantastic. Awesome. I am so glad that you explained each woman because,
There's another one.
Yeah, okay.
Well, actually, there's two more. Terry Hall,
Oh,
who I think
absolutely.
we've talked about before, Becky.
Yeah.
Um,
I was so happy to see her up.
yes, ma'am. And I'm sure I've spoke to Judy Hall, her sister, and I'm aware that the family's thrilled to have her up there. Terry was a great representation of females for our county in a nationwide spotlight. Terry was a pioneer of female basketball coaching. She became the first full-time female basketball coach at U of L for the Lady Cardinals. And then she eventually went to UK, where she became the all-time winningest female basketball coach. And I think even the Kentucky Senate at one time made her the first lady of Kentucky basketball.
Yeah.
So for a Salem girl, that's an impressive feat.
Well, and I'll add a little bit more is how I know so much about her.
Sure.
When I was much younger, I had my family, my mom and dad sent me to the UK basketball game,
Awesome.
and all they talked about was Terry Hall, Terry Hall. I mean,
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
ma'am.
Everybody, we talked about it.
Yes, ma'am.
And I thought, you learn to appreciate her, and I love that we're continuing recognizing her, and she's
Right.
got such a good story, a story that needs to be told. So I'm
She
so
does, and
Yeah.
I think unfortunately because of people like Pat Summitt, Terry Hall was a little bit overshadowed, but she undoubtedly belongs in that same conversation with Pat Summitt. She had over 200 victories in her coaching career, so really impressive.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Very,
And
very good.
a
And
deserved.
I like the diversity of the ladies up there.
Yes, ma'am.
That's-
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
wonderful.
So the last woman up there is Emma Christie Baker. Emma Christie Baker was born just down the hill from the museum in 1864 or 5, I think it was, and her family left here sometime after the Civil War and moved to Indianapolis. And after Emma graduated from high school, she eventually became the first woman and the first black person that was ever hired by the Indianapolis Police Department. She eventually went from foot patrol to like a detective, and then she ended up working for the juvenile probation system.
Wow.
So, and she was a really significant woman. She handled something like over 5,000 cases during her career. So she had a long law enforcement career. And there are women today, Becky, on the Indianapolis Police Department that have pictures of Emma Christie Baker in their office.
Love that.
So she is revered in the law enforcement, and would have been a pioneer for women in that career field for our state. So another significant person that was born here in Salem, in Washington County, that went out into the world and left a good impression of our natives.
Absolutely. And every one of them are trailblazers. Every one of them have
Yes,
really, I just think that what a beautiful history for sure. And what a great honor to have them up there. And of course that sparks conversation, that
It
sparks
does.
people, either you want to Google them or find out more.
Recognition. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am. It's
recognition
helpful.
Yeah.
Because, as we've talked about 100 times before, Becky, the county history is not taught anywhere. So if you want to learn about your county history, you have to seek it out. Otherwise, you just won't know.
Right. And it's so important. And, and these, and you talk about anybody that
It's
thinks
who
that
we are.
yeah, that they can't do it, or, maybe because we come from a smaller community,
Yes, ma'am. That we're dismissed.
yeah.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
look at all the bright shining stars we have, and those are just,
That is just a handful,
I
Becky.
know,
Honestly,
I know.
we've had so many incredible, impressive people, men and women.
Yeah, absolutely.
Loads of them. I could talk for days about it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I hope anyone that's listening, maybe you live in another community or surrounding community, please come over and
Absolutely.
and see it. It's absolutely beautiful. It's right behind City Hall here.
So this is part of a larger vision, Becky.
Tell us our vision.
Okay, so I mentioned to you off air that I had recently had a conversation with Judge Newkirk. And one day, Tara Baker Kreitzer and myself were in the alley behind the Lanning House and City Hall there. And we were having a conversation about how we might be able to better connect the Hay Center to the historical square. So her and I tossed around some ideas and talked about it a little bit. And then I went to the museum and I had a conversation with Willie Harlan. And I informed Willie Harlan what Tara and I had been talking about. And Willie said to me, he said, Jeremy, Frank Newkirk Sr. had that idea in the 1980s. And I said, well, what happened to that idea? He said, there was a new mayor. So the idea was apparently dropped by the next administration and kind of forgotten about. So I went down to the newspaper room at the museum and literally found it in the paper in the 1980s that Frank Newkirk Sr. had this idea to try to increase historical tourism to our town of connecting the historical square to the historical center. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I decided that we should try to jump on that, and I've tried really hard to sell our board of directors and society members and the general public and city officials and county officials and I think that the mural and the Indiana University Pocket Park project are going to be kind of the centerpiece of this connecting alley between the Hay Center and the square. Eventually there's a project involving the Salem Main Street Committee where they are talking about putting historical plaques on all the buildings on the square that tell the history of those buildings. And then if we can continue with our historical art murals in the connecting alleyways between the square and the Hay Center, we're kind of hoping for a little bit of a pandemic perfect walking historical tour. Self-guided.
Wonderful. And let's go back over to make sure that this money is actually IU is donating this.
Yes, ma'am. The Pocket Park. So Indiana University has a program called the Center for Rural Engagement. And, as I mentioned, Salem was selected as one of the towns to receive the benevolence of that program. And through their contact with back then, I guess she's not anymore, but back then when Tara Kreitzer was the chamber representative, she connected myself and this art department that was art and architecture department that was trying to put some sort of a pocket park in our community. They have footed the entire bill for that project. They paid for the mural. Like I said, they contracted the artist. All of that has been their contribution towards this alleyway that we're trying to create. So it has not been of any cost to the city that I'm aware of. You could ask Mayor Green. I'm not aware that it's been any cost to any entity in Salem or the county.
Love that.
To my knowledge, it's all IU's money.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. And that, because people do ask and they do want to know.
Sure.
So it's good to
Yes, ma'am.
explain that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, Becky, we've been struggling at the John Hay Center, and the COVID pandemic has not been helpful.
No.
I haven't had a group tour of more than 9 people in almost 2 years now. So it's been a detriment. The pandemic has been a detriment to our business. It's also been a detriment to our efforts in collecting money or receiving donations. You know, a lot of people are applying that stuff towards COVID. So, and that's an understandable, it's an understandable situation. However, we have gotten to the point where I feel like we're starting to turn the corner at the Hay Center. And as I mentioned to you earlier, this afternoon, I'm taking bids for the roof of the Hay House. I've got some contractors coming, so I think there's going to be the public is going to notice a market difference at the John Hay Center, hopefully locally, and then a little bit further out from that as we improve from our current COVID situation. But we have a lot of stuff in the works and in planning stages. But obviously, the refurbishing of the John Hay birthplace is our number one priority, and I am happy to say that project is going to be started probably within the next couple of weeks.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that everybody's excited about that because we have been so near and dear, and we know this is such a rich history.
Yes.
And it's
obviously the John Hay Center wouldn't be the same.
Right.
If we didn't have the John Hay birthplace. And, it's been my aspiration, and as I'm sure it is with some others involved, Becky, that we restore the John Hay Center to the vision that Everett Dean had it when he concocted this idea of preserving our community's heritage in a grander way. So we're, like I said, I'm really hopeful, and I think that the community is going to notice a market difference. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening at the Hay Center, whether there's a pandemic going on or not. We are going to press forward with our maintenance needs that have been neglected for way too long.
Love that. Wonderful. And
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
everybody's very excited about that. And
here again, Becky, we do have an anonymous donor that's going to issue a grant to us if we can match that grant.
yes, and how
And
are you coming along? Yeah.
We're so close. We're so close at this point, Becky, that I can taste it.
Mm,
We're that close,
awesome.
and we have until December to raise the funds. The quicker, the better. But we are close enough now where I'm nearly convinced that we're going to get there, and that flush of financial aid to the John Hay Center will be recognizably significant to all the buildings up there. Really, I think that you'll see a huge difference, a huge improvement that's been a long time coming. And again, outside of the benevolence of the anonymous donor, the John Hay Center is incredibly indebted to the society members and the local community who have once again donated significantly to try to help save the John Hay Center. And, a really incredible facility for Salem to have, and a tourist attraction for Salem to have.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Definitely. Wonderful. Well, and and again, I just kind of want to put a little bit of a reminder to everyone when you're talking about, doing it the right way and doing it the historical way, you have to add in a lot of more money. I mean, nothing is done like when those words, just like,
Yes.
when
you mention historic preservation, yes,
yes,
ma'am. It does
It
tend to
doesn't
send the
necessarily
bill
usually
up.
behind something or
Yes.
anything. Well,
Yes.
just like vintage. Anytime if you're looking for
Yes, ma'am.
a vintage,
You're going to pay
sweatshirt,
more.
Yeah, you're going to pay more.
Yes, ma'am.
Anytime, and I always want to bring that to people's attention. It's not. I mean, right now our building supplies, have they were up, but I've heard they've gone down. I don't know. I'm not building anything, but I do know with the historical. Anytime when you're talking about bringing, trying to get back to your original materials,
Yes, ma'am.
a lot more expensive. And I always like
Generally,
to
yes,
bring that,
ma'am.
you want to bring that to attention because they're harder to get. It could be. We saw that with the courthouse.
They are.
Trying to get some of the, some of these, the way they're doing it, they don't do it in that way.
Right.
So
right.
you have to have
Some of the stuff they
specialist-
used to work with, they don't even
don't
consider
do it.
or make
Yeah.
anymore.
And you have
Yes,
to find
ma'am. And
a
then you have to
specialty person
find
in
yes,
that, which
yes,
that's a degree of difficulty right there.
and you're going to pay more for it. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So we are going to
just
run
really-
into some of that, Becky,
and just
without a doubt.
reminders. I'm just throwing that out there.
Without a doubt. Eventually the interior walls of the hay house will have to be replastered.
Oh, wow.
Do you know anybody that does plaster?
No.
Well, we're going to have to
could
find
eat
somebody.
mud pies if
Yes, ma'am.
mud's involved. But,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't think we want.
So we're going to run into some of that without a question, Becky. We're hoping to use some local contractors and stuff to hopefully
yeah, absolutely.
be able to save a little bit so we can pay a little bit more on those specialty items that we need to. So I believe it's going to work out.
Right. Well, and I knew someone that did the old 18th century. I think it's called a sandbox house. I think that's what they called it. And trying to find people that could take it to that was very difficult.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So I mean, I've learned, on that how what a road that is to travel to try to find the materials and the
Right.
people.
Yes,
how to do
ma'am.
it. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
How many brick masons do you know?
Jim Sands.
Right. It's
Yeah. I mean, right? I
it's
think, yeah.
unfortunate that a lot of these trades are
I hope he's
are fading
listening.
out
Jim
on
and Jay,
us.
Jim and Jay, listen off.
It's like a lot. Do you know a locksmith?
No.
Do you understand
these are
what's
traits
going
that-
on?
Yeah, there's a lot of traits that are not.
They're
You know what I mean?
disappearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know that we even have a locksmith in Salem.
I'm not for sure on that either. You know what I mean? So these are things that we might need to get back.
Well, I've noticed, Becky, with probably because of the History Channel, that there has been an uptick of interest in younger people with blacksmithing.
I love that.
Right,
That's
and that's
something
great.
Yeah.
The world probably will never stop needing someone that knows how to work with metal.
Go research.
So
Need more of you.
I would think the same would be true with locks and bricks. I don't know why some of those trades don't garner the same kind of attention that the blacksmiths are getting,
I don't know.
but it feels like they're equally significant.
Definitely, and and of course I love brick, and I love we tried to do a brick wall, just like
I live on the brick road, so I'm.
Yeah, you're kind of Well, I love all that. I love that. I love
Yes, ma'am.
rocks. I love concrete. I love all that. It's just it's a whole nother degree of difficulty, and learning how to do it is a whole nother trait.
For sure.
That's just not something.
For sure.
You have to learn how to.
Did
do.
you see they're restoring the Medora brick factory?
No, I did not, but I'm very happy.
You should
to
go
hear
up
that.
there and see it.
And I have one of the bricks.
They've started clearing it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Love preservation.
Yes, definitely. You're in the right
I'm
place.
happy to see someone save something. Becky, everyone is so quick to tear stuff down.
Yeah. Right.
Erasing our history.
I know.
And our heritage.
Well, you're the voice that tells people to let's try to fix it back, and let's try to bring
If I
it back.
can get them to listen, Becky,
Yeah, I know.
I will sure
Well,
try.
But you do a great job, and we're very blessed, and definitely your knowledge is unreal on that. Did you have any other stories
Oh
for
my
us?
gosh, Becky.
What?
What?
I love a good story.
Where are you at on?
Where am I at on time? I know that's what I was looking at time because I do need to give. Actually, we've only got. You have a short story. No,
I'm not
well,
sure if I have a
I-
short story.
I do appreciate though you going over the ladies
The
that are
women,
up on
yes,
the wall.
ma'am.
And that was
Absolutely.
those were actually good stories for
Yes,
sure
ma'am.
to share with our community and for anybody. There was a lot of talk about it. What's going on, who are these ladies, and a little bit of information about them. And these are ladies that should be recognized that maybe
Absolutely.
have never been talked about at supper table or dinner
Right.
table. And these are things. And of course, I love the women power, the
Yes,
woman.
ma'am. Girl power.
Look how awesome. I mean, and you go back now, and you go back then, and you think about what. I mean, there's so many obstacles that these ladies have had to go over.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
just, it's
Yes, ma'am. And I was talking to someone the other night, Becky in New Jersey, that was asking about our mural.
I love that.
And she particularly wanted to know why we had selected women. And I said, for over 200 years, women have been equally responsible for the history of our country, but never really received any acknowledgement of that or recognition of that. So, seems way past due.
Well, they talk about like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Look,
Right.
Ginger did it in heels. I mean, right?
Yes, everything that Fred did, Ginger did in heels.
Heels. I mean, which a degree of difficulty, and they were the
You could speak to that better than me,
the
Becky.
finer heels. No, I know the degree of difficulty
Yes, ma'am.
that she had. You have to give, and you watch White Christmas. They all did, their dancing
Yes, ma'am.
in heels. I mean, there's so much stuff, and then not to mention, their other lives as far as their moms, raising children and making sure they didn't have microwaves, they didn't have the Instapot, they didn't
Yes,
have
ma'am.
the crock pots. I mean, they had to figure out how to keep food on the table, and then it's amazing to me all the things that they have accomplished, and then they didn't just hop in a car and drive.
Right.
They had to saddle up and head out.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I'm sure some of those journeys, as far as they were, you had to stop and let the horse rest, and and also what environment are you in? Are you
Right.
safe environment, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Where you can't go and get a 64 ounce.
Yes, ma'am.
They don't have a McDonald's, Jeremy.
Right. Right. Yes, ma'am.
And-
I can't think of a better example of the power of women historically in our country, Becky, than Abigail Adams.
Oh.
If you were to read anything about Abigail Adams, I don't think that you need any other explanation as to why we would honor women.
I love that. And just give us a little bit of that story then. With just a little
Well,
bit.
I mean, as much as we refer to the founding fathers of our country, there were a set of founding mothers that were largely married to those fathers. Abigail, in particular, was intricately involved in the behind the scenes operations of the early stages of our government. She befriended Thomas Jefferson and was influential in that relationship with Thomas Jefferson, not to mention that her husband was John Adams. And, we can continue on with the Adams and how much they've been involved in the early stages of our United States government. Just her influence and her rationality, and she had a tremendous amount of influence over both John and Thomas Jefferson and other people that she had met as well. George Washington, was quite taken or impressed by her. So she was. There's probably not any way for me to actually know how significant she was, because no one actually wrote much about Abigail before they wrote about her husband and Thomas Jefferson and the fathers of our country. But yes, ma'am, she should be on a really high pedestal, similar to the Mount Rushmore. If you were going to build a Mount Rushmore for women, I would put Abigail Adams first.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, ma'am.
I have an Abigail. I love that. Yeah.
Oh,
strong
yes,
woman.
ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I love absolutely, and I think that would be brilliant if they did.
They should.
You know, and I think it's good because there have been a lot of women that have that have been I know I keep using the term trailblazers, but have set the tones, have set the
Absolutely.
moods, and have had really good decisions and
Yes,
good,
ma'am.
good
I hear on TV all the time, Becky, people say, I stand on the shoulders of giants.
I love
I
that.
think we all do. At this point, I believe we are all standing on the shoulders of giants. If you want a point of that, I keep asking everybody that comes into the museum if they think Washington County will ever produce anyone more significant than John Hay. Is that possible?
To do all he did, I just don't.
Becky, do you know that in 14 years after he died, that he had the number 9 most popular song in America? John Hay wrote the number 9 most popular song in America in 1919.
Okay, you got it.
When the Boys Come Home.
Oh.
Ollie Speaks is who performed that song. And because of World War One, it brought back. Now, John had written it about the Spanish-American War when the boys came back from that, but Ollie Speaks did this performance, and right after, at the end of World War One, when all the boys were coming home, it was number 9 in the country.
How did you
So
have
on top of
I know, I just
working for 6 presidents, writing 20 books,
yeah, I'm just amazed. Yeah, well, that makes me feel like
publishing the
I need to
newspaper.
add something more to my life. I mean.
You know what he never did, Becky?
Talk about hunting. Do what?
Do you know what John Hay never did?
What did he not do?
Watch TV.
Watch TV. Okay. Yeah.
So he accomplished a lot.
Well, they didn't have the housewives back then, okay?
Right. Or any of that.
Or the Bachelorette.
Any of that.
Yeah, makes a big difference, right?
Less distraction.
Yeah. Very distracting.
More production.
For sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Or Monday Night Football. Or
Any of that. Video games, we could go on for days.
Yeah.
No Facebook
Well,
Live. No none of it.
Yeah, no Facebook. No Facebook Live.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, it is awesome, and definitely good reminders and bringing us to the roots and how our community has got such a rich history.
Oh,
I
we
know,
sure do.
My dad had that commercial for years. One of the finest museums in the Midwest, and
God
and you
bless
talk
him.
about that, and yes,
Yes, ma'am.
and it is.
I hear it regularly, Becky. Not from people in our community necessarily, but I hear it regularly from people out of state, out of town, out of country. They go on about how impressed they are that a town our size has something this incredible.
Right.
And it is. Spend some time there. It is incredible.
It is, and and what a blessing that we have.
We owe that to our community.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Everyone.
Yeah. And you talk about the givers that we have.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
realizing the importance of it.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Well, I'm so glad to have you on, and
We
we're going to have to
appreciate
get
you
you back.
having me.
I do need to get the COVID report here, and we are up, of course. This is, let's see here. We've had, on our 7-day positive rate, we're at 10.8%. And let's see here. In Lawrence County, they've had 68 new cases.
Whoa.
135 deaths. Jackson County has had 36 new cases, 78 deaths. Jennings County, 37 new cases, 52 deaths. They are at a 17% positive rate. Let me go back to Lawrence County. They're at 18.3%
Oh my.
positive rate. Yeah. Orange County had 32 new cases. They have 57 deaths. Washington County, we had 35 new cases. We've had 42 deaths. We're at 8.1% positive rate. Scott County had 47 new cases. They're at 59 deaths, 12.3% positive rate, which is pretty high up there. Clark County had 121 new cases,
Oh my.
206 deaths. They're at 13.5% positive rate. Floyd County had 56 new cases, 11.8% positive rate, 191 deaths. Harrison County had 53 cases, 79 deaths. They're 11% positive rate. Crawford County has 21 new cases, 18 deaths, and 8.7% positive rate. So if you go, I mean, there now this is just in the listing area here,
Yes, ma'am.
the southern part, and we like used to. Let me roll back. Months ago, we would have 0 cases. Some of the counties would have 0 cases.
Right.
There's not any 0 cases, and actually the littlest is Crawford County with 21 new cases. Everybody else is just right up there.
It's terrifying.
It's very terrifying, and we
I'm worried
know.
about the winter, Becky.
Well, and that's what the health department, we talked about. We've not, and I pray this statement is not right, but when we start getting in close quarters, we start getting
Yes.
into the winter time, what they're for, this is not even, this was the statement they said, we're not even to the worst yet. And I don't want to, I hate to put that out there in the universe. I hate to speak
Sure.
those words, but I just want people to be, we're just going to have to turn it around and hopefully be wrong on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? And we
It
have
would
that
be
power
wonderful.
to try to do the best we can do,
Right.
and that is, being responsible.
Yes.
you
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
And we hear those stories of people that know they have it, but they go on to outings. They, I mean,
I
they
do know.
tested positive, and we
That
hate
came
that.
into my family recently, so I do know.
And that's, we need to not do that. We need to really be responsible. And even though it might not affect you, we have to show that. And being in a community and being a part of a family of
Yes,
a community, our community is a big family.
Right.
And and you have to protect everyone. And
You should.
some of them are not able to be compromised. And so just be so responsible. I think
Yes,
that's what
ma'am.
we're just going to have to keep preaching that word.
Be
And
an adult.
this is definitely history, right, Jeremy? I mean, this will be.
It's another page of history, Becky. I realize there's some sentiment out there that this is like something new, but it is not
Right.
anything new. We've been through loads of these kind of pandemics, medical crisis, from smallpox to polio to on and on and on, scarlet fever, all kinds of stuff, right?
Right. Well, and then someone was talking the other day. And I don't remember this, and I guess they had like buildings. Was it tuberculosis?
Tuberculosis,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
And they had.
That's
buildings.
Waverly in Louisville, Becky. That's
Okay.
That's like one of the most haunted buildings in the United States of
And
America.
that's
It's the
what
Waverly Asylum.
Yeah.
It was a tuberculosis center.
Yeah. They said that they would have
There's
like
1,000.
It was 1994 and radio was such a bore. Every station that you heard sounded so late. Then came 2 good old boys breaking through that static noise, and my radio ain't never been the same. It's a very funny thing how they make us laugh and sing. I'm so glad they proved all of those critics wrong. You got Rick and you got Bubba, man, there just ain't no other. From Alabama to the world, still going strong. Man, I love to sing that Rick and Bubba song.
Let's all sing it.
Rick and Bubba. Rick and Bubba.
We're back. We thank you for being with us. A brand new hour has begun. Don't forget Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, again this weekend, wherever you get podcasts. Helmsy, Speedy, and Adler here. Greg is out. He'll be back on Monday. And welcome back, Bill Bubba Bussey.
Rick, glad to be here and thank all of you for spending a little time with us. Now almost 28 years. Can you believe it?
Wow. Bubba, funny text.
Wow.
Funny text, which we'll get into.
I was 30 when we started this.
How about that? Wow. So, we had,
I could run back then.
I don't know if you know this, we're still in the pandemic. But anyway, so we've had to try to do the golden ticket seats and shut them back down. And we got some, we're going to read somebody who's out there and outside watching. We got some people that are watching again today.
We call those the silver seats.
We've had people that had big plans about being here, and we tried to, accommodate them best we could. outside. But this is funny because mentioning the pandemic, I just had somebody send me their negative test results for COVID-19. Somebody that I know, and I was like, why are you sending me this? And the person said, well, I mean, I've come to the conclusion I just tested negative for COVID, so I guess I'm just old. He said I felt terrible, and I realized that it has nothing to do with COVID.
Yeah, as serious as it all is.
Right.
And we had someone that we know very well pass away yesterday from it. There is. I've got a couple of reports I'll share with you later that I'm going to almost put under the comedy category because they're so comical now.
Well, and as I said, as human beings, it's almost like we've lost the ability to just tell the truth, and that is, we're in something that is novel. We're in a pandemic. None of us were around for the last one, because they're about every 100 years. And this is a virus that we're trying to figure out, which will be beneficial to the people that may, or hopefully, God forbid, have to do it again. And the bottom line is we're learning as we go. And it's okay to say we're doing the best we can, but there's a lot of things we just don't know. So we're just going to keep trying things, and we're all working out, as opposed to making outlandish statements like this is it and no one can oppose it, because that's just not true. Because we see people that are equally qualified who say two completely different things.
Yeah,
and
we'll share that with
and
you.
we'll do that later. But anyway, you said you got an email from one of the guys outside.
Oh yeah, Big Steve's been out here day number 2.
Yeah,
and we talked with him yesterday for a minute. He told me this morning. I met him when I came in, and he said that he's here to show support for the show, but he's also here to support a local team in the sport of floorball.
Say that again.
Are you familiar with floorball?
No, I am not.
He said it's kind of like hockey, but you play it like on a basketball court size inside. It's kind of like field hockey, but on a hard surface.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. Isn't it just field hockey on a hard surface?
Yeah, but they call it floorball in that case. And they're having an event over this weekend down at the BJCC, and it's tied into the World Games and kind of a forerunner of some of that.
Is it qualifying for the World Games?
I'm not, I don't need too many questions on this, Rick.
I'm so sorry. You're right. It's going to start. It'll start. I'm sorry. That's on me.
But Steve, he does play for the Birmingham franchise of this. So
the Steve out here?
Yes.
For the Birmingham franchise?
Yes, that is correct.
So I saw his stick out there
he's
earlier,
got his
and I was wondering what was going on.
It looks like a hockey stick that's just made of bracing,
Yeah, when I saw him yesterday, the first thing that came to mind was world-class athlete.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And so he is a member of the Birmingham Vulcans, which,
I know that.
used to be a football team we had there.
Did they not have a team in Virginia?
Well, look,
Maybe not.
The floorball, you probably, it's probably a little limited. It's probably not as widespread as some other sports. So
Right.
But you know what? They're getting out there and getting after
Yeah,
it.
they
So,
are.
Steve, you came this far by Georgia winning the thing. You know what I mean?
So there you
Vulcan
go.
up, baby.
Let's go.
Give them the V.
Let's go.
Say Vulcan up.
That's right. Vulcan up.
I might even want to do that. Mine won't either. I got too much arthritis.
Well, you don't watch Star Trek.
No, I don't.
Live long and prosper.
No, I didn't. If I'd have watched
Isn't that
Star
funny?
Trek,
When we had the World Football League, it was called the Birmingham Vulcan.
Yep.
Nobody knew we had a statue here called the Vulcan. Everybody thought we were some kind of Star Trek.
no, you're
thing.
right. You're right.
And which, if you're going to be a Star Trek thing, the Vulcans are probably a pretty cool bunch to be.
It is.
But,
Yeah, I never
especially
watched
if they
that.
put that mind melt on it.
I never watched that show. The group that I ran around with, and if you watch Star Trek, they beat you up.
Right. Well, you didn't tell anybody. That's
Right.
for sure.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So,
Well, good luck. That sounds fun.
yeah. So, also,
Bring it back, Steve. Win it.
Yeah,
Let us know how you do.
Let's go. Look
Huh?
right there.
He's got his shirt on. He's ready.
Yep.
Huh?
Yep.
Floorball, baby.
Right.
Floorball might be something. I was thinking Michael Hams might be pretty good.
I got
He's
nothing.
He's still got some feet on him. I've seen him on that tennis
Well,
court.
that's
moving
where you're
around.
going to see the feet on tennis court.
Well, I wasn't gonna.
That's
I'm
it.
not going to suggest it to you.
I got too many things
No,
going on.
Rick,
I'm not suggesting
No.
to Bubba. I saw what happened at pickleball.
Rick, I'm kind of like a rocket. Every time they put on the launching pad to get started, it blows up.
Right.
You know?
Rick,
It's
yesterday
much like Starship test out at SpaceX.
yesterday was an opportunity during the week that I get out and the tennis is mine do a little bit better. And my tennis bag had to be laying in my office on my desk, and Bubba walked by and he saw it, and I could tell it stirred his interest a little bit. Man, I miss that. I could just the conversation we were having, the things he was saying. I thought, and I miss you being out there, quite frankly.
Listen, some of the hardest athletic competition.
Activities that we're going to be working on, and we'll definitely keep that in the know in the public. And
Yes, ma'am. I'll be back.
All right, happy Friday. Thank you. And we have football tonight. Tune in, the Eastern Musketeers. We'll be traveling quite a bit of a distance, but definitely worth it and excited about it. And Eastern's really their team's really shown some greatness, and we're excited about seeing them tonight and listening to them on the radio. So tune in. And anyway, a fun time for Friday night. Under the lights, right? All right. Have a great weekend.
A little bit on my view of the natural antibodies.